Hey, everybody. Let's go back about 30 seconds in my life. And I'm going to replay. Well, I'm not going to replay. I'm going to reenact a scene from about 30 seconds ago. Okay. I'm not here yet. I'm sitting down. I'm reading the chat. I see Brandon Lesko saying Legal Vices is late and boomer. And I'm thinking, aha, it's only 10 o'clock. It's still 10 o'clock even. I better start the show. I hit the 30-second countdown. I'm waiting. It hit 0. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, wherever you may find yourself in the world today. It's me, Legal Vices, and I'm all color coordinated and stuff, and I'm trying to swear less. And it's at that point I said shit, because I realized that I had not actually gone live when I started the bumper and started my intro. So as a result, I was both late and boomer, and Brandon Lesko was correct. Best laid plans of mice and men. Yeah, so yep, I was late and boomer because I overzealously tried to not be late and boomer. So there we go. Welcome. We got a lot of ground to cover today. We need a major update for this. Everybody's talking about the FBI report that came out from Alec Baldwin. But before we get to the FBI report, we got to back up a little bit. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about the FBI report, but we're going to lay a lot of foundation before we get there. So there's a way big update or 3 coming your way for dealing with Alec Baldwin today. Before we start, as always, thank you everybody for being here. Mods, thank you for being here. We love the mods. The mods are great. We can't do this without the mods because they need to keep you degenerates in line. And thank you degenerates for being here. Without you degenerates, I wouldn't need mods and I wouldn't need to be here either. So it's all of you keeping me here. Deeply appreciated. If you want to do a quick sound off from where you're from, instead of saying boomer and late, maybe you should just check in with a nice comment or something. Alan Tempest is here. Swan Lake Lady is here, gone, and going to be back in a little bit, I guess. So where do we got? We've got Australia here, I know. We've got, where else we got? Melbourne. All right. Kansas. We've got Kansas coming here. Ontario, Canada. Now the locations are rolling in. Massachusetts, Minnesota, more Australia, Mumbai. Kevin, good to see you here from Mumbai. Rhode Island, Lewisburg, West MD. Wish it was West Virginia. Okay. LA and California, Alabama. Good morning from SWFL, home of the GATORS. Southeast Louisiana, UK. All right, we're everywhere. It is official everywhere. And Soy Mafia is kicking us off with a super chat. All righty. The super chat is why super chat? Support legal mindset. Soju habit. Oh, I'm going to be supporting Legal Mindset's drinking habits. We're going to be binge drinking this weekend. So that's all taken care of. All right. So the routine, as we all know, we try to kick it off at 100 viewers. We have 100 viewers here right now, so we can get right into it. But we've only got 60 likes, 59 likes. So half of you haven't liked yet. Hit that like button, boost this like up here, get YouTube on track here to start referring us to other people, helping the channel grow. YouTube likes the likes. And as Frank Burns said from MASH, it's nice to be nice to the nice. So I like to be liked with likes. That was lame. Sorry. And also, if you haven't done so, please hit the subscription button and double check to make sure you get, you double check to make sure you're still subscribed. That's what I'm saying here. All right. If you've subscribed, make sure you're still subscribed. If you have not subscribed, please jump down and do it. We're doing quite well. We're doing good. We are off on the right track. 103 viewers, 83 likes. And as we move through the day, remember, The best way to get a hold of me, to have me make sure I see your chat and answer a question, is through the super chats. The super chats, the super stickers, whatnot. That gets a shout out to you. That gets whatever question you have answered. It gets whatever statement you have relayed and my comments on it. We don't make a big deal out of it. It's not a requirement. It's not a request. There's no minimum super chat, super sticker, whatever. It's just whatever you want to do if you want to do. But it will guarantee that I read your question, answer your question, read your comment, respond to it, whatnot. But I do try to look at other people in the chat, such as Brandon saying, why don't you get Andrew's artist to get you emojis? Reasons. There are reasons why I don't. But I do have a couple of irons in the fire from my email from yesterday. So stand by for that. We should hopefully, I'm going to try next week, at least by the end of next week, to be ready to do subscribed memberships with some emojis. That's about all I got to offer at this point in time. Yeah, might do some like after shows over there. What, you know what? We'll see. All righty. Let's jump right into it. Alec Baldwin. Last we left Alec Baldwin situation, they had the authorities had interviewed a bunch of people. And it just off the top of my head, I haven't even actually gone back and reviewed. We had Gutierrez Reed, the lovely young lady who was in charge of weapons, who we couldn't quite figure out exactly what her job was. She was the armorer, but she wasn't, because she was working with the props department and helping out other people, doing other things, and getting yelled at for yelling at other people. So we weren't quite sure, but we were convinced, at least I was, that she did some ridiculously negligent shit and probably should be charged with something. We learned a lot about her today. The next was Sarah, what's her teeth? Sarah, she was a bit shady. She was the prop master who had accidentally discharged one of the weapons a couple of days before the shooting. She had no idea how to handle weapons. She had to be shown how to load them, how to do other things with them. She struck me as being completely unqualified for her job. You're saying armpit woman. Yes. Dang. We're going to learn a lot about her and why I think she may be in some serious trouble. We had David Halls, who was the head of all of this stuff. He was a dick. He was a liar. We think he was banging Sarah, and they were jealous of the armorer, Gutierrez Reed. So they may have been trying to throw her under the bus. Dave is not looking so hot today, I think, after this. And Alec Baldwin, of course, says some stupid shit. He says he doesn't know how to, he knows how to tell if everything's loaded, but he didn't check the gun. He spouted off. He's in a very interesting position today, especially once we get into the FBI report and the aftermath of that. Yeah, and there was someone else. Was that it? I think it was just those five. Yeah. All right. Yeah, she had large feet. We had one smelling her armpits, Gutierrez Reed. She was just digging in the arm, getting some armpit whiff, and the other one just had massive feet. And David Halls was like a surfer, like Jeff Spicoli, that someone just said, hey, go work on films. But that's where we are. That's where we left off. Everybody was kind of in a holding pattern. We had our initial opinions. Then it wasn't too long ago, May, June, July, August, about 4 months ago, a little less than 4 months ago, the OSHA, the Office of OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, they released their report. And that's what we're going to get into first. It's a 25-page report. We're not going to read it all, thank God for that, but we are going to get into it. Let's see here. We have Kitty Cat saying legal vices. Are they going to find out who loaded the live round or forget about it if they can charge Baldwin? Well, we know that we know that Gutierrez Reed, the young armor lass, was the one that loaded it. It's just there's a lot of stuff that happened. I just caught myself from swearing again. I'm so proud of myself. There's a lot of stuff that happened between her loading that gun and it going off that we're going to learn a little bit about tonight. And to help me, to lubricate me, to get things going, we have Yellow Rose Premium American Whiskey. We're drinking a little Rock Gut. Well, it's not Rock Gut. It's actually pretty darn good. It's just not very expensive. And it's from Texas, obviously. It's the Yellow Rose of Texas. So great. Oh, they just hang in here. Hang in here. I thought Armpit Smeller was Hannah Reed. Yes, that was Hannah Gutierrez Reed, the armorer Bigfoot. That was Sarah. So, all right, let's bring this up. And again, hit that like, hit that subscribe, super chat, whatever. All right, here we go. Share the screen. Ooh, I almost removed the screen. We want to share the screen. All right, we're kicking this off with 152 concurrent viewers, 98 likes. Hit that like button. Boom, let's go. The Rust Movie Productions issued a willful citation, which means they intentionally did something bad, for Helena Hutchins' avoidable death on set. Where did my thing go? Gotta bring up my window. There we go. All righty. Rust Movie Productions, LLC, was issued a willful serious citation that includes a $136,793 civil penalty. This is the highest level of citation and maximum fine allowable by state law in New Mexico. So basically, they got fined by OSHA as much as it's possible to fine them by law. So we're off to a great start. That's the first sentence. So what were they cited for? Cited for plain indifference. Just basically dicking around is what that means. For plain indifference to the recognized standards associated with the use of firearms on the set that resulted in a fatality, severe injury, and unsafe working conditions. While the film industry has clear national guidelines for firearms safety, Rust Movie Productions, LLC failed to follow these guidelines or take other effective measures to protect workers. The guidelines require live ammunition never be used nor brought onto any studio lot or stage. That safety meetings, which, well, we know that happened. We know they brought live ammo onto the set. That safety meetings take place every day when firearms are being handled. We know from testimony that didn't happen, and that employees refrain from pointing a firearm at anyone except after consultation with the property master, armor, or other safety representative. Well, we also clearly know that somebody, Alec Baldwin, pointed a firearm at someone. In fact, pointed a firearm at two people. By failing to follow these practices, an avoidable loss of life occurred. The tragic incident never would have happened if Rust Movie Productions, LLC, had followed national film industry standards for firearm safety. Well, they didn't. This is a complete failure of the employer to follow recognized national protocols that keep employees safe. Jadari's the Japanese version, so that's what a human life is worth. No, this is just an administrative civil fine for them violating the safety protocols. This is the least of everybody's worries. So the criminal investigation is ongoing and unrelated to today's citation. Anybody in here, anybody involved with this, including Alec Baldwin, Hannah Gutierrez, Smith Sarah, what's her face, David Hall, anybody that's involved with this, even people we haven't seen or heard from yet, can be charged. Nobody has been ruled out as a witness. No one has been ruled out as a suspect thus far. Let's scroll down. This is the industry-wide Labor Management Safety Committee safety bulletin. This is what they're accused of violating. Recommendations for safety with firearms and use of blank ammunition. Blanks can kill. That's a great way to start. Wish someone would have read that first sentence. Treat all firearms as though they're loaded. Live ammunition is never to be used nor brought onto any studio lot or stage. Firearms include prop guns, rubber guns, plastic guns, non-guns. Firearms include non-guns, flintlock guns, pistols, machine guns, rifles, shotguns that shoot blank ammunition. Before the use of any firearm in a rehearsal and or on-camera sequence or off-camera use, all persons involved must be thoroughly briefed at an on-site safety meeting, all caps, where the firearms will be used. This meeting shall include an on-site walkthrough and or dry run with the property master, or in her absence, the weapons master. So there we go. The meeting should be run by the property master. And if the property master is not there, by the weapons handler. So Sarah should be running the program. Hannah should be running the program if Sarah's not there. And you can hear the dog snoring in the background already. They've fallen asleep. Yeah. So a designated production representative and anyone that will be using, these are the people that have to attend, anyone that will be using or handling a firearm. An understanding of the intended action, possible deviations, plans to abort, emergency procedures, and chain of command should be made clear. No one shall be issued a firearm until he or she is trained in the safe handling, safe use, the safety lock, and proper firing procedures. If there are any questions as to the competency of the person who will use the firearm, the property master, or in his or her absence, the weapons handler, etc., shall determine if additional training is required. A safety meeting for the cast and crew shall be conducted. And they've got a list here. I highlighted all these things to read them. So we'll just scan through the major quick ones here because they address several of them in depth later. General safe use and handling. Number 1, refrain from pointing a firearm at anyone, including yourself. If it is absolutely necessary to do so on camera, consult with the property master and or down the chain. Remember that and this is just basic, everything that you learn the very first, or you should learn the very first time you ever look at and or touch a weapon. Remember that any object at which you point a firearm could be destroyed. Never place your finger on the trigger until you're ready to shoot. Alec Baldwin. Keep your finger alongside the firearm and off the trigger. That's just good trigger discipline. Now, next, know where and what your intended target is. Do not engage in horseplay with any firearms. Only a qualified person shall perform hand loading or altered factory loaded blank ammunition to work on firearms. Quickly addressing a few topics here, which some will be addressed later. Clearly, Alec Baldwin violated rule number 1. Clearly. He clearly pointed at him. Place your finger on the trigger. Well, he says he didn't. He's probably lying. The FBI thinks he's lying. Know where and what your intended target is. Yeah, he claims to have been rehearsing. He may have been rehearsing. At what point does rehearsal become horseplay? We don't know. Only qualified person should perform the loading. Well, we heard that the prop master, Sarah, who had to be shown how to load a gun a few minutes before she discharged one accidentally. She is clearly, some of the guns were loaded by some people that were not qualified. The property master, or in his or her absence, the weapons handler, is responsible for the following. So primarily, Sarah is responsible, and secondarily, Hannah Gutierrez Reed is responsible for ensuring the control and distribution of all firearms on the set. Remember how many times they were asked how many guns were on set? I don't know. There was a lot. How many bullets were there? Oh, I don't know. We had a lot. Uh-huh. Both of them said that. Their own qualifications. This is one specifically for Sarah. The property master is responsible for knowing their own qualifications for working with the type of firearms being used, the knowledge of their safe handling, use, and safekeeping, and familiarity with the blank ammunition to be utilized. Well, clearly Sarah was out of her depth. She had to be showed how to load a gun. Then she promptly set off a round that if it had had a bullet in it, it would have blown her foot off. They're responsible for seeking expert advice if he or she is not familiar with the firearm to be used. They must demonstrate the ability to demonstrate prior knowledge of the safe handling of firearms and blank ammunition. They're responsible for loading of firearms. So they're responsible for the personal loading of firearms or the personal designation of an experienced person working under his or her immediate supervision. So here we're starting to learn a few things about the relationship between Sarah and Hannah. Firearms are to be loaded just before they are used in a scene. We had them loaded before then. We had them left loaded during lunch, and the final bullet, which unfortunately happened to be the live one, put into the chamber after lunch. So that wasn't followed. Ensuring that any actor who is required to stand near the line of fire be allowed to witness the loading of the firearm. Nobody that handled that after her, when we'll see there's a long line of people, including the people that were shot, witnessed the loading of the weapon. They're responsible for the possession of all firearms except during actual filming or rehearsal. Afterwards, the prop master will immediately unload the blank ammunition from the firearm. Again, not done. Checking all firearms before each use. So that's just kind of a summary of what was looked at. Here we've got a listing of basically the background, who they talked to, what the investigations were. This is interesting here. The company representative informed me that I would be allowed entry. This is the first time. This is October 22nd when OSHA showed up to do their first investigation. The company representative informed me that I would be allowed entry, but not allowed to take pictures or conduct interviews until a warrant was acquired. After being denied the ability to inspect the site by the sheriff's office and the company, I left. Well, luckily, a few days later, they were allowed to conduct their investigation. Who knows what safety-related things they cleaned up in the few days there. So I explained, this is when they got the citation. I explained that a citation related to safety practices on the use of firearms may be issued, and that abatement for such citation would require an effective firearm safety program. Here's their findings. Phew, let's get into these findings. This is where we have fun. The firearm involved in the accident is a modern replica of a Colt .45 caliber revolver. In film, firearms are typically controlled by the props department, with the individual responsible for handling firearms and ammunition titled armorer or weapons handler. The armorer for this film was Hannah Gutierrez Reed, and her immediate supervisor was Sarah Zachary, props master. So there we go. We finally have a little bit of light, because even the two people, even Hannah wasn't really sure what her job was. She didn't have a contract that explicitly said things, or so she said. She didn't. Sarah didn't quite know where everybody fit in the line in the chain of command either. So this puts a little more clarity onto it. Sarah, as the prop master, was Hannah Gutierrez Reed's immediate supervisor. So when Hannah was in the props department as armorer and under Sarah Zachary's supervision. Nicole Montoya, props assistant, provided support to Zachary and Gutierrez Reed. The Rust Props Department was small and for administrative purposes was placed under the Art Department, headed by Brian Norville. So the Props Department, the armor is under the Props Department. The Props Department is under the Art Department. Alec Baldwin, what's his role in all of this so far? Alec Baldwin, actor and producer, and Joel Souza, director, negotiated with various producers to help create and fund the Rust project. Alec Baldwin's authority on set, this is because we're like, well, what was Alec responsible for as producer? Alec Baldwin's authority on set included approving script changes and actor candidates. Alec Baldwin handled the revolver and fired the round that struck and injured Helena Hutchins and Joel Souza. We'll get more into what Alec Baldwin's deal later in a different part of the show here. Hannah Gutierrez Reed reported to Sarah Zachary for directions on daily tasks. This is where things go sideways. And Sarah Zachary reported to Brian Norville. Hannah Gutierrez Reed performed armorer duties, such as demonstrating that a firearm was cold or hot with Dave Halls. Dave Halls was also responsible for identifying and correcting hazardous conditions related to firearm safety. Hannah Gutierrez Reed was responsible for storage, maintenance, and handling of firearms and ammunition on set, and for training members of the cast who would be handling firearms. And remember, everybody said, no, there was no set safety procedures. Well, apparently there was. In accordance with Rust safety procedures and industry recognized safety practice, the armorer is required to be present whenever firearms are being handled and should have the authority to determine whether an individual requires additional safety training. If you'll remember, Hannah Gutierrez Reed was not present when this thing went off. She was, I think she was immediately outside of the chapel where this shooting happened. She should have been there. And why she wasn't there, if you recall, is they were having her do some other prop-related stuff. More on that later. Gabrielle Pickle informed Hannah Gutierrez Reed that she was allowed. Now this is where the BS starts here. Gabrielle Pickle, who's one of the higher ups, informed Hannah Gutierrez Reed that she was allowed 8 paid days at the armorer's rate in her contract to perform armorer tasks, and that the rest of her time was to be spent as a props assistant. So they basically only gave her her armorer's salary for 8 days and said, we're going to give this to you for 8 days. The rest of the time, you're working as a props assistant. Interesting. Rust ordered ammunition with the intent to receive blank and dummy rounds from PDQ Arms and Props. The property master stated that Rust did not intend to have live rounds on the set. Live rounds may be distinguished from dummy rounds by either a small hole in the brass cartridge, indicating there's no powder, by a missing or dimpled primer at the bottom of the cartridge, or by shaking the round and hearing the distinct clatter of a BB within. Unless a round is removed from a storage box or firearm and inspected, it cannot be verified as a dummy round. All right, here's the events, some of the major events that preceded the fatal shooting. On October 14th, Gabrielle Pickle emailed, this is where my sympathy starts to improve for young Ms. Hannah Gutierrez Reed. I'll give you my thoughts on here as we go through a little bit more. But see if your feeling might not be changed a little bit after hearing this. On October 14th, Gabrielle Pickle emailed Hannah Gutierrez Reed addressing armorer and key props duties by stating, "It has been brought to my attention that you are focusing far more on armor and not supporting the props as needed. Production and AD teams have seen twice that there was a shotgun left unattended after a scene." So on the one hand, they're saying she was spent too much time with the armory stuff and not enough with the prop stuff. But then they're saying that one of the arms was twice left unattended. So Ms. Pickle went on to say that she needed some type of check-in out system put in place immediately. Hannah. What does Hannah say? Ms. Gutierrez Reed responded by email that same day, stating that the armorer job was a very serious job. And since we've started, I've had a lot of days where my job should only be to focus on the guns and everyone's safety. There are working guns on set every day, and those are ultimately going to be a priority because when they are not, that's when dangerous mistakes can happen. So we have, I guess this was what 6 days, 7 days before the shooting. They're telling the armorer not to spend so much time with the arms and to spend more time on props. And the armorer, rightfully, I believe, is saying, "Hey, look, there's guns on the set every day, and if we start taking some leeway and we start breaching protocols, somebody's going to get hurt. The guns need to be a priority." Well, a couple days later, was it 1 day later, 2 days later? There were two firearm misfires on the Rust set. In the first instance, Sarah Zachary, who it was either that day or a day or two previously, had been shown how to load a weapon, where she's the head prop master and she's supposed to know this before the job starts. So there were two misfires. In the first instance, Sarah Zachary inadvertently fired a blank round as she finished loading a .45 caliber revolver that was aimed at the ground. What? John Long last name said it's like an actor is writing this because none of this happened in real life. Okay. I hope I'm missing something because this is the results of the OSHA investigation here. So yeah. All right. Well, this seems to be what happened. So she fires the blank round into the ground. To return the hammer to the closed position to make the firearm safe, the operator must hold the hammer and depress the trigger, guiding the hammer to the closed position deliberately. In the case of the first misfire, the hammer slipped from Ms. Zachary's thumb or fingers and likely resulting in the firing pin on the hammer striking the primer, which ignited the powder, firing the blank round. The second misfire on that same day. The second misfire involved Blake Teixeira, let's call him Blake, stunt double for Alec Baldwin, and a lever action rifle of unknown make and model. It's not known how the misfire happened, as according to some statements, he was alone in the cabin, and others state he was not alone. Don't play with guns. Two men alone in a cabin shouldn't be playing with each other's guns. Hannah Gutierrez Reed stated that Blake's only comment was, "It just went off." Hannah Gutierrez Reed described that it is probable the rifle was fired by being placed on the ground too roughly. On October 17th, the following day, Hannah Gutierrez Reed sent a text message to Gabriel Pickle stating, "Hey, we're on day 8 of Armor Days." They haven't even really started filming it at this point, and she's already out of her contractual armorer days. They said they would only give her the 8 days as an armor, and the rest she had to deal with props. So she's saying, "Hey, we're on day 8 of Armor Days, so if there's gunfire after this, you might want to talk to the producers." Well, Ms. Pickle replied the same day that there would be no more training days. Ms. Gutierrez Reed then asked to clarify training days. Ms. Pickle responded, "Like training Alec and such." Several days before the shooting, Gabrielle Pickle says, "You're not training Alec Baldwin anymore. You're not doing any training of firearms anymore." They told the armorer, Hannah Gutierrez Reed, that she was not to conduct any more training. Alexander Ledgerwood, thank you so much for your emptiness here. It's deeply appreciated. Telepathy. We'll communicate the comment with telepathy. Thank you so much. You can leave the super chats. You don't even have to say anything. I hope you meant to say something. because there wasn't anything there. All right. So here we are again. Pickles telling Hannah Gutierrez, sorry, I know we really haven't started filming yet, but you're not going to do any more training. No more training. Yeah, great. So 3 days later, on October 20th, 2021, Lane Looper, first assistant cameraman, resigned. This is the walkout that took place the day before. The first assistant camera resigned, citing safety concerns. Among other issues, and stated in an email to Roe Walters, during the filming of gunfights on this job, things are often played very fast and loose. So far, there have been 2 accidental weapons discharges and 1 accidental special effects explosive that have gone off around the crew between takes. To be clear, there are no safety meetings these days. There are no explanations as to what to expect for these shots. So there you go. Apparently, the camera crew didn't like the fact that somebody told the armorer not to conduct any safety training. These are emails that were sent explaining the firing. So yeah, they did resign because of safety, and as it says right here, among other issues, safety concerns among other issues. Let's not jump into conspiracy wagon here. You know, there were definite safety concerns, and they mentioned the safety concerns in their resignation. Cherry Admax, thank you so much for the super chat. This is why assumptions should never be made without all the facts. Yeah, you can be swayed and lean one way or the other, but you should be willing at all times to be able to switch your position if you're so persuaded. On October 21st, David Halls handled the 45 caliber Colt revolver, loaded with what he assumed were dummy rounds. Again, what we just read about assumptions. So Dave Halls handled this 45 caliber Colt revolver. He handed it to Alec Baldwin. He gets it from Hannah Gutierrez Reed. He hands it to Alec Baldwin. Alec Baldwin aimed the revolver towards Helena Hutchins and Joel Souza, and a projectile was fired, striking Ms. Hutchins and Mr. Souza. Conclusions. As a result of the inspection, the OHSB is the Occupational Health and Safety Bureau, determined that Rust was responsible for a serious violation of the New Mexico Occupational Health and Safety Act. While no specific state or federal OSHA standards exist for firearms used in film industry, it is clear both the employer and the film industry recognize the hazard associated with the use of firearms on movie sets and the potential for serious injury to employees. Further, Rust demonstrated plain indifference to the safety of employees by ignoring recognized hazards inherent to the use of firearms and ammunition by failing to take appropriate corrective or investigative actions after 2 firearms-related misfires occurred on October 16th, 2021. And after employees notified management that they did not feel safe with how weapons were being handled on set, Rust failed to show company safety procedures, which likely would have prevented the incident from occurring. Rust Management did not ensure their own safety procedures taken from film industry safety bulletins issued by the industry-wide Labor Management Safety Committee were followed at the worksite. Here's their findings on the specific items. The property master or armorer will work in conjunction with the production's designated safety representative to assure that the following standards are adhered to. Failure to implement. The standards listed in Bulletin 1 were not enforced by Rust Management and or supervisors, including but not limited to Sarah Zachary, the property manager, and David Halls, the safety coordinator. Live ammunition is never to be used or brought onto any studio lot or stage. Failure to implement. Rust did not develop a process to ensure live rounds were not brought onto set. Before use of any firearm in a rehearsal and or camera sequence or off-camera use, all persons involved must be thoroughly briefed at an on-site safety meeting where the firearms will be used. The meeting shall include an on-site walkthrough and or dry run with a prop master or designated production representative and anyone that will be using and or handling a firearm. Failed to implement. Employees stated that while safety meetings took place, they were not conducted each day firearms were used on set, and often mentioned and often any mention about firearms was brief and not specific. D, no one shall be issued a firearm until he or she is trained in safe handling, safe use, and safety lock and proper firing procedures. If there are any questions as to the competency of the person who will use the firearm, the property master shall determine if additional training is required. Gabrielle failed to implement. Gabrielle Prickle instructed Hannah Gutierrez Reed on October 17th that no more training days would take place, like training Alec and such. Rust Management did not provide the armorer or property master with the authority to determine if additional training was required. So they gave Hannah Gutierrez her marching orders and did not give her the authority to say, hey, we're not doing this. We need training. You don't know what the hell you're doing. I have to hold the daily safety briefings, et cetera, et cetera. This one is just about attaching these rules to the call sheet every day. They didn't do that. Never lay down a firearm or leave it unattended unless actively filming or rehearsing. All firearms should be safely secured. Failure to implement. After instructing Hannah Gutierrez Reed to focus more on the props assistant duties and less on armorer's responsibilities, Pickle then informed Hannah Gutierrez Reed that production and AD teams have seen twice there was a shotgun left unattended after a scene. So armorer, don't do your armory job. She doesn't do her armory job. And then there's 2 incidents of firearms being left laying around. We need all weapons to be in your control anytime they're used. Hannah Gutierrez Reed explained conducting her armorer duties and prop assistant duties created a gap wherein actors and stuntmen put down a firearm and step away, leaving it unattended. Hannah informed Gabrielle that it would slow production down terribly if we had to check them back in between scenes, and when I'm forced to do both, that's when mistakes get made, like the shotgun being unattended. Gabrielle Pickle instructed Hannah Gutierrez Reed to develop a check-in out system for weapons, but did not follow up to ensure weapons were secured and ignored Hannah Gutierrez Reed's concerns about not being provided adequate time to perform armorer duties. Refrain from pointing a firearm at anyone. If it is absolutely necessary to do so on camera, consult the property master and other safety representatives, such as the first AD, stage manager. Remember that any object at which you point a firearm could be destroyed. Well, clearly that was a failure to implement. Lane Looper stated that many camera shots had the firearms pointed and firing at the camera. At Rust's top-level management, safety official Mr. Halls did not consult with a property master or armorer during or after the firearm was loaded, handed to the actor, and pointed towards crew members in order to determine that pointing the firearm at persons was absolutely necessary. H, firearms are to be loaded just before they're used in a scene. Failure to implement. On the day Helena Hutchins and Joel Souza were shot, the firearm was loaded and handed to Alec Baldwin during an informal rehearsal and prior to filming the scene involving the firearm. So Rust did not provide staff responsible for ensuring firearm safety with sufficient time to inspect ammunition. Rust failed to address the hazardous condition and reinforce adherence with their own protocols to protect workers. Rust management, including Gabrielle Pickle and Roe Walters, ignored concerns of firearm misfires. Mr. Halls did not discuss the incident with staff, report the incident to Rust producers, review the incident as safety coordinator, ensure Sarah Zachary took appropriate action with respect to safety protocols, or take any other corrective measures. Rust initiated no investigative action into the second firearm misfire on October 16th, beyond Hannah Gutierrez Reed asking Blake how it happened. Dave Halls was present during the incident and did not speak with either Hannah Gutierrez Reed or Blake. And as we come to the end, Rust management took no action to review or address workers' safety concerns. When the armorer had used most of their contractually limited armorer days, they were issued a written instruction to focus less on their armorer tasks and spend more time assisting the props department. When the armorer expressed a need to ensure actors be able to safely handle a firearm from a holster, they were told by the line producer that the armorer would be informed if that was necessary. Yeah, so you got Hannah saying, hey, I need to be able to determine whether these people are qualified to be handling the guns from a holster. And he said, no, we'll tell you when to think that. Eek. The employer, Rust Movie Productions, LLC, demonstrated plain indifference to the hazards associated with firearms by routinely failing to practice their own safety protocols, failing to enforce adherence to safety protocols, and failing to ensure that the handling of deadly weapons was afforded the time and effort needed to keep cast and crews safe. Additionally, the employer disregarded or otherwise did not follow up, ask questions, or try to understand what happened when employees notified management about the misfire incident and did not feel safe on set. The safety coordinator was present on set and took no direct action to address safety concerns. Management was provided multiple opportunities to take corrective actions and chose not to do so. As a result of these failures, director Joel Souza and cinematographer Helena Hutchins were severely injured. Helena Hutchins succumbed to her injuries on October 21, 2021. Recommendations were basically pull your head out of your ass and enjoy your $137,000 fine. So that is pretty much the end of the OSHA document. So OSHA has found a lot of people, Ms. Pickle, Dave Halls, Sarah, this Roe guy, they've found a lot of people to be occupationally negligent. And to a certain extent, Hannah not investigating the second misfire, and being probably the person who, well, not probably, she was the person that loaded the live round. So there's a shift in my heart that, yes, I still think Hannah Gutierrez Reed as the armorer was negligent, occupationally negligent, and that her occupational negligence, even if it did not directly cause the shooting death, it may have contributed to it in some small way. But even she should have caught the fact that there was live rounds in there. No question about that. But it was handed off to David Hall, who was the guy that was in charge of the overall safety of it. He never checked. And he should have checked. He gave it to Alec Baldwin. Alec Baldwin didn't check. And then we have this mysterious, I didn't pull the trigger, it just went off thing that we're going to talk about a little bit later. But I'm starting to think that Hannah Gutierrez Reed will not be charged. That's my gut feeling at the moment. She's on record. She's got the emails where she's saying, hey, I'm spending way too much time doing prop shit, not enough time protecting people's lives. It's dangerous. My prediction, I'll let you know if this ever changes. But Cherry Ann Max says, was Hannah no longer the armorer the day of the shooting? She was still the armorer. She was just told not to waste time being the armorer. They said they would pay her for 8 days as armorer and the rest as prop assistant. Before the shooting, a few days before the shooting, they said, okay, your 8 days are up. Don't do any more training. Don't train Alec Baldwin. Spend more time on props. So here's my prediction. We're write it down and I'll let you know if it ever changes. My prediction is Hannah Gutierrez Reed will not be charged. Why? 2 reasons I can think of off the top of my head. One, like I said, she was, of all of the negligent people on set, she was the least negligent, I think. The second thing I'm thinking is, like I said, she wrote the emails saying, I'm not spending enough time as armorer. I need you need to let me do the training. She was the one that was saying bad things are going to happen if we keep going down this road. They need her as a witness to give foundation for these documents, to testify that the other people were acting negligently. They're going to get her to be a witness for the prosecution. She's going to cooperate with them. She's going to be a witness for the prosecution. She will not be charged. That's my prediction. Spotlight, well, you see, you make an argument. That's bullshit. She left guns lying around. She should know better. She fucked up and left someone dead. She's not a murderer, but she's part of the chain that left someone dead. That's true. The guy that sells the rock of cocaine on the street corner, he's part of the drug cartel. But do you go after him, or do you get him to cooperate and go after the bigger fish? So if they say, okay, Hannah, we're going to prosecute you, we're going to try to put you in jail. Now, will you help us? Will you cooperate and help us do these other guys? We're going to still try to put you in jail, but we need your help putting other people in jail with you. That doesn't work often. All you got to do is not cooperate, and they can't form a good foundation for the evidence they need to bring in. So I'm thinking she will be a witness for the prosecution. That's my bet. I'm calling it. That's my prediction. She's going to be a witness for the prosecution. She's going to go in and lay the foundation for those emails where she was complaining about her being stripped of her authority, her not being able to conduct training, her not being able to do things, her expressing her concerns that this was going to lead to a dangerous incident. And she will testify that other people did really bad shit. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking David Halls is getting charged. He's the head guy on set. He's the one that's responsible for the people under him. I'm thinking he's going to get charged. Sarah, I don't know. She's really low level. She was just kind of an idiot. She was unattentive, which may be, it may be negligence, but does it rise to the level like a criminal negligence? I don't know. I haven't really decided about Sarah yet. No Hannah. Yes, Dave Halls. This Pickle woman, she is not looking like she's in a good situation right now. Pickle looks, I'm thinking she's going to go down for telling the armorer not to do the armorer's job. She's going to go down for basically negligently supervising people and telling them to do things they're not supposed to do. So I think Gabrielle Pickle is going to be charged. Dave Hall is getting prison time. If so, it would be a small amount. Pickle may go down for a good length of time, but that leads us to the 800-pound Baldwin in the room. Does Alec Baldwin get charged? Let's hold that thought. Let's hold that question until we get into the yes. Is Dave Hall the guy who kept trying to help the detective? Yeah. I think he helped himself into a criminal charge. So after the OSHA thing happened, we have the FBI report. I tried to find an actual copy of the FBI report, but I couldn't get my hands on one. So we're kind of limited to news reports, which I hate because I like to make my own opinions. I like to decide what I want to read, what I want to focus on, and what I don't want to. So while I'm bringing this up, where are we sitting at here? 300. We've got 352 people here. Welcome, 352 people. 210 likes. We're 55 minutes into this, and I haven't had a damn drink yet. Well, solve that problem. Cherry Animax, thank you so much for the super chat there. Screen sharing. Yeah, I know that. No wonder DH was pushing LE towards Hannah. David Halls was pushing LE toward Hannah. LE. Who's LE? My brain isn't working. Law enforcement. No wonder DH was pushing law enforcement towards Hannah. I kept trying to, whose initials are LE around here? Law enforcement. I got it. Yeah. I beat you to it. I got it before you told me. Ha ha ha. All right. Yes. Sure. I mean, that was Sarah and he were both doing it. And Alec Baldwin was throwing her ass under the bus. And we're going to see why, and we kind of see why that's shitty. And we're going to see why it's shitty a little bit later. Oops, I'm starting to swear again. So, all righty then. Let's see what the FBI had to say about the magic ghost gun. We don't get a full story, but we get a little bit. So while I'm bringing this up, now's a perfect chance to reach down there, boom, hit that like button if you haven't already done so. If there's any of you 347 people that are here right now that haven't subscribed, please do me a solid and subscribe to the channel and come back for more. We got some great stuff coming up on the horizon. And by horizon, I mean the next 3 or 4 days at least. So we're good. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. And thank you all that have done the super chat so far. I've got a couple things to clear here. I'll suggest that no one will be indicted as the DA is a Soros-backed DA and up for re-election. We'll see. Britt Cormier, thank you so much for your super chat. As always, I never understood why the camera was in front of the gun. You can make just about any camera shot work with the use of mirrors or in post-production. It's just what they want to do. The low budget film. They just wanted to get it so you could see the dummy rounds in the cylinder. They wanted a cool shot. Didn't work out quite the way they thought. Yikes. Tracy Fagan, thank you. Thank you for the super chat. I think that if there are guns on the set, there should be a full-time armorer. Well, that's apparently what most people think. But this was a small budget movie, so they didn't do that, and they allotted only 8 days. So, yeah. Drew Bradley, your hat matches your shirt. That means you were not drunk when you got dressed. Yeah. All right, look at me. I'm all color coordinated. Again, hey, we're at the midpoint. We're in the midstream part. We're doing good on time. Just again, give a shout out to my mods. We've got the mods here. The mods are being quiet tonight. Come on, mods. What are you doing? I'm just like scrolling back. Maybe my mods have abandoned me. Steph, are you there? Beaver didn't show up yet. Mods? Where's my mods? Anyway, all right, let's move on. Fine. It's a modless wasteland down here. All righty, we got to share the screen. This is one article. Not the most objective thing we've got here. Oh, I've got a. What am I looking at? All righty. Fun. Sorry about that quick delay. I was just seeing, I got a tweet that I thought was from the WAS, but wasn't. All righty, here we go. Let's scroll up to the top of this article, huh? Dun, 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 boop. Oh, all right, come on, get up there. Bring up the other screen. Fatal film shooting by this is the medical investigation comments and a little bit on the FBI. Fatal film set shooting by actor Alec Baldwin was an accident, medical investigator finds. Well, nobody, except for nobody's suggesting that it was intentional, except for kind of some over the edge conspiracy theorists, I believe. I guess we can get rid of that. Alan Tempest says Steph is here. Yeah, Steph is here, but Steph's being quiet. Why are you being so quiet, Steph? Oh, there's Steph. Hey, Steph. There we go. All right. Shout out to Steph, my one and only mod that's here, apparently. Shout out to you folks. Let's keep it moving. Other live ammunition was found on film set during investigation into Helena Hutchins' death. Yes, we're aware of that. Oh, yeah, the source of this is the Associated Press. There's Alec looking pensive. The fatal film shooting of a cinematographer by actor Alec Baldwin last year was an accident, according to the detail. Now, again, it's important to note that accident does not mean that he's not getting charged. Just because the medical examiner says he didn't, there's no evidence that he intentionally tried to shoot someone, does not mean that someone's not getting charged. Accident does not mean you're off the hook by any stretch of the imagination. That's what negligence is. Negligence is an accident. If it wouldn't be negligence if you meant to do it, it would be intentional. So, yeah. This means nothing from a legal point of view. According to the medical investigator, following the completion of an autopsy and a review of law enforcement reports. The medical investigator's report was made public Monday, couldn't find that either, by the way, by the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office, along with numerous reports from the FBI on the revolver and ammunition that were collected following the shooting. Dang, dogs. You're snoring up a storm back there. Prosecutors have not yet decided if any charges will be filed, saying they would review the latest reports and were awaiting cell phone data from Baldwin's lawyers. They subpoenaed these cell phone records a bajillion years ago. I mean, like months and months and months and months ago, and they still haven't turned them over to the police. That's not a good sign. That's not a good sign when you are subpoenaed, when your records are subpoenaed and you're not giving them promptly. Baldwin was pointing a gun at cinematographer Helena Hutchins when it went off. Yes, it went off. That's technically accurate. Killing Hutchins and wounding director Joel Sousa. They had been inside a small church during a setup for a filming scene. While it's too early to say how much weight the medical investigator's report will carry with the district attorney's office, probably not much. Baldwin's legal team suggested it was further proof that the shooting was a tragic accident and he should not face criminal charges. Again, tragic accidents do not mean that you should not face criminal charges. It means you made a mistake. Something went wrong. You fucked up. Oops, there's another dollar in the swear jar. This is the third time the New Mexico authorities have found that Alec Baldwin had no authority or knowledge of the allegedly unsafe conditions on the set. Ooh, I think you did. That he was told by a person in charge of safety on the set that the gun was cold and believed that the gun was safe. Where is his negligence? He didn't check it himself. He took someone's word for it. Yeah. Trigger had to be pulled. FBI analysis. We're gonna read a couple of articles that sort of say the same thing, and that's the problem with the media these days. You have to read 2 or 3 articles to try to see if you can piece together what the real story is. Uh, Asked who told him it was cold. David Halls was the one that said it was cold, apparently. So Baldwin said in a December interview with ABC News that that was a stupid interview too. Interview with ABC News that he was pointing the gun at Hutchins at her instruction. Mm, yes. I I would say that sounds technically accurate. She wants to see what this is going to look like when the filming starts. So saying point the gun at the camera is not necessarily a dangerous thing. It becomes dangerous when you start fucking with things, when you start messing with the hammer. That's when problems start. If he would have maintained good trigger discipline and not had his hand on the trigger and had not been screwing with the hammer, it's never would have happened. An FBI analysis of the revolver that Baldwin had in his hand during the rehearsal suggested it was in working order at the time and would not have discharged unless it was fully cocked and the trigger was pulled. That makes more sense than Alec Baldwin's bullshit story. With the hammer in full cock position, With the hammer in full cock position, the FBI report stated the gun could not be made to fire without pulling the trigger. See, that's what they do when they hear this. They say, okay, let's replicate the situation. Let's do exactly what he did. It doesn't work. What do we have to do to make this thing fire? She said the only way it would fire, even fully cocked, is if you pulled the trigger. It doesn't just go off by itself. While the working internal components were intact and functional, during the testing of the gun by the FBI, authorities said portions of the gun's trigger sear and cylinder stop fractured while the hammer was struck. That allowed the hammer to fall and the firing pin to detonate the primer. So, what they're saying is the only time in their entire testing process that this gun fired without pulling the trigger was when it was broken from too much testing, apparently. This was the only successful discharge during the testing, and it was attributed to the fracture of internal components, not the failure of the firearm or safety mechanisms, the report stated. It's unclear from the FBI report how many times the revolver's hammer may have been struck during the testing. Baldwin, who's also a producer on the movie, has previously said the gun should not have been loaded for the rehearsal. Well, you had it in your damn hand. You could have said, I think we should take these rounds out. And we also know there was more live ammunition found. Among the ammunition seized from the film's location were live rounds found on a car and in the holster that was in the building where the shooting happened. Blank and dummy cartridges were also found. New Mexico's Occupational Health and Safety Bureau, in a scathing report issued in April, detailed a narrative of safety failures in violation of standard industry protocols, including testimony that production managers took limited or no action to address 2 misfires on the set prior to the fatal shooting. The Bureau also documented gun safety complaints from crew members that went unheeded and said weapons specialists were not allowed to make decisions about additional safety training. In reaching its conclusion that the shooting was an accident, New Mexico's medical investigator's office pointed to the absence of obvious intent to cause harm or death, and stated that there was said no compelling demonstration that the revolver was intentionally loaded with live ammunition on set. And again, the police will do their own investigation and come up with their own conclusions on that. So as far as whether it was intentional or not, it's not really something I thought the police aren't going to give much weight to the medical report about that. So, all right. Thank you there, CBC. Let's dump you. Now, the next thing we've got is from NPR. The NPR report is a little more involved. So let's, we don't want to do that. The NPR report, as always, a little more thorough. Listen to the dog snore here while I pull that up. Boom. All right, let me really very quickly check to make sure I haven't missed any super chats. I don't think I have. I have not. Super. All right. Where the Rust shooting investigation stands as FBI refutes Alec Baldwin's story. All right. We got Alec Baldwin's story, and we have the FBI saying, I doubt it. If the FBI is doubting your story for months, John Long, last name, says NPR isn't biased ever. Well, we know they're biased, but they also do a better in-depth job reporting, and that's why we look at other sources. As I said, you have to look at several sources to try to piece together the real story. For months, actor Alec Baldwin has said that he did not pull the trigger of a gun, and we know they're left-leaning, and here they're going after Alec. So, for months, actor Alec Baldwin has said that he did not pull the trigger of a gun that fatally shot a crew member while they were filming in New Mexico, but forensic evidence may tell a different story. The FBI recently finished and sent a report to the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office, which is handling the investigation. Officers found that the weapon, meant to be a prop, could not be fired without pulling the trigger. The FBI recently finished and sent a report to the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office. And I just read that paragraph. Scrolling. Baldwin's lawyer called the FBI findings misconstrued. Well, I'm sure he did, adding that the gun in question was in poor condition in a statement to NPR. Well, if the gun wasn't supposed to be loaded and you thought the gun was in poor condition, maybe you shouldn't have been using it, Alec. Maybe you should have waited. Maybe you should have mentioned it. And he was the one that chose the gun. If you go back to his testimony, he was the one that chose that gun. He wanted a big one. He got a big one. So what happened? And Baldwin's response. The investigation shooting is ongoing. So far, no one's been charged with any wrongdoing. The incident took place in October while Baldwin was rehearsing a scene on Santa Fe's outskirts for an upcoming Western movie, Rust. At the time, the actor was practicing how to draw a revolver and pointed at the camera. When the gun fired, a bullet struck and killed cinematographer Helena Hutchins, as well as injured the movie's director, Joel Souza. The state medical examiner identified a gunshot wound in Hutchins' chest and ruled her death an accident, according to the documents obtained by NPR. In a primetime interview with ABC last winter, Baldwin denied claims he had pulled the trigger. I would never point a gun at anyone and pull the trigger at them. Never. This is why you don't go on primetime TV and say stupid shit without your lawyer. This is exactly the reason you don't do that. I would never point a gun at someone and pull the trigger. Never. Someone is responsible for what happened, and I can't say who it is, Baldwin added, but I know it's not me. Until the FBI says, liar. A number of lawsuits are ongoing. After the fatal incident, Hutchins' family filed a wrongful death suit against Baldwin and the production company. We'll talk about that. I don't know if we'll get time to talk about that today, but we'll talk about that lawsuit later. Alec Baldwin's a dick. Surprise! In the details surrounding the filing of that lawsuit. Others who were on set when Hutchins was killed, including the film's script supervisor, the lead camera operator, and the production's main medic, have filed lawsuits over the trauma they went through. A medic filed lawsuits over the trauma they went through treating an injury, I guess. What's that smell? Money. People are smelling money. The sharks are circling the water. The script supervisor is suing for trauma they suffered as a result of the shooting. Hannah Gutierrez Reed, who is in charge of the film's firearms, also filed a suit against an ammunition supplier for including live rounds in an ammunition box that allegedly was meant to include only prop ones. Baldwin's lawyers have also filed an arbitration. This is the one that I want to get to later. Like I said, I don't know if I'll have time to get to it today, but it's definitely going to be the next thing we talk about in relation to the Alec Baldwin shooting. Baldwin's lawyers have also filed an arbitration against the production company, arguing that this is standard, this is smart. Kudos to Baldwin's lawyers for putting this clause in a contract. They filed an arbitration against the production company, arguing that the actor's contract includes language that protects him from any costs or claims against him. Yeah, it's what we call an indemnity clause. It basically says something along the lines that Alec Baldwin shall be held harmless for any losses or damages that are suffered as a result of the negligence of the Rust Rust Movie Productions LLC. Any way the production company was negligent or their negligence led to Alec Baldwin's losses, the production company is required by contract to cover him for it. So if someone sues Alec Baldwin personally for his the damage, he can say, well, wait a minute, you're claimed 100% of damages against me. My own negligence in this was 1%. The production company, their negligence was 99% of the reason this thing happened. So they owe me 99% of the money. And here he's basically saying, hey, I did nothing. Of course, that's what the lawsuit says. I did nothing wrong. The you production company people, everything you did was wrong. None of this was my fault. So every single loss or damage, every fine, every piece of any compensation I have to pay to someone, you have to pay back to me. That's a very, very interesting lawsuit to read. And that's the one we'll do next. His lawsuit basically saying in the contract, it says that any damages I suffer because of your negligence, you have to pay me for. So at the end of the day, Alec Baldwin may get off without paying anything out of his back pocket. Doesn't Alec Baldwin own the production company? No. That is one very interesting thing about that lawsuit. It lays out how this is all organized. It's interesting. If we don't get to it today, we'll get to it next week, probably early next week. That's a very fascinating document. It answers a lot of those questions. Valhalla waits. I'd be willing to bet Alec Baldwin is making more of the decisions involved here than he's letting on. Again, that lawsuit that it's the arbitration that he's filed against a production company sheds light on that. It shows exactly what his requirements and his responsibilities were. Very, very interesting document. So we'll look at that next. Rust Movie Productions also challenged allegations made by New Mexico's Occupational Health and Safety Bureau, which fined the film production company, nearly $137,000. So of course, the production company is contesting that and saying, we shouldn't have to pay any of this. A spokesperson for the state bureau told NPR that the company has been cooperative, but has yet to pay the fine. I got to go to work soon, says Rocket Rockwell. I thought Baldwin did own something with Rust. He had a role. It wasn't a great role. But we'll talk about that, as I said, probably next time. Steph, thank you so much for the super chat. Awesome. I'm slow because COVID is kicking my rear end today. And yes, Baldwin is an asshole. Oh, you're still down in the dumps with the vid. That sucks. He was told by the person in charge of safety on the set that the gun was cold and believed the gun was safe, said Baldwin's attorney, Luke Nikas, adding that Baldwin was not aware of the unsafe conditions on set. Well, if he knew the gun was in bad condition and nobody was doing something about it, that tells me he was aware of unsafe conditions on the set. He was holding an unsafe condition in his hand, if you were to believe what he said about the gun. Gutierrez-Reed's lawyer, Jason Bowles, told NPR in a statement, the newly released FBI reports show the revolver was in good working order and that Baldwin had to have pulled the trigger to fire the revolver, directly contradicting his prior statements. Sounds good to me. Bowles said Baldwin ignored Gutierrez-Reed's request to do cross-draw training, which would have forbade pointing a weapon at anyone or having his finger on the trigger during the cross-draw. The Santa Fe Sheriff's Office told NPR that detectives are still waiting to receive and review phone records. Once it's done, the case file will be forwarded to the district attorney for preview and final charging decisions. That's the NPR article. We have Spatha saying, Swan Lake lady, no clue. It was on Vice's screen, but he didn't clip it. Was it a good one? We're going backtracking here. Baldwin plays the murderer in this one. What are we talking about? All right. I must have done something or said something. But all right. We got to clear up a couple things here. Cherry and Max, thank you for the super chat. It's always deeply, deeply appreciated. Wasn't there a discussion about a type of bullet that would go off from the hammer without the trigger being pulled? Vaguely remember something about that. Well, what the argument was saying was that gun, if you pulled the hammer back a little bit and let it go, then it could fall with such force to ignite the primer. That was kind of what they were saying. You don't have to pull it back all the way. You can pull it back a little bit of the way and drop it and it will go off. But apparently the FBI is saying, nope, that's not how it worked. Spatha was joking about a coupon. A coupon? Dang it. Did we get botted? Oh, well. Swan Lake lady, no clock. Okay, that's cleared up. Apparently that was about the coupon. The fake coupon. All right. Well, so we're kind of seeing, and if I ever get my hands on the actual FBI reports, then we definitely will go through those because I want to see what it says. I'm sure it says a lot more than these news, and you'll see the news sites are kind of basically saying the same thing. I want to see what it really says, what the whole thing says. But we kind of get the basic idea. They're saying that they tried however many times to get this thing to fire without pulling the trigger. And the only way it would fire is if the hammer was pulled back into a full cock position and the trigger was pulled. The only time it went off without pulling the trigger was after it had broken because some internal stuff broke. So that's looking really, really bad for Alec Baldwin, I think. So I'm thinking I'm going to put a percentage on this one. I don't have the guts to go full in on this yet, but I'm saying 65% chance that Alec Baldwin will be charged with some sort of negligence. What could be whatever their version of a negligent homicide is. I think there's about a 65% chance he's getting charged with something at this point. Should be 100%, but there's just something in my gut saying hedge my bets a little bit. So I'm thinking 65% chance he gets charged with something. And if he does get convicted of something, he won't do any jail time. Because Alec Baldwin. So those are my predictions for today. Louise Florence says, I always thought it was a given he pulled the trigger. You'd like to think that. Yeah. But he's still relying on this. Hey, I don't know. I was doing the thing. I don't know. But he still should have checked. I'm not quite on the fence. I'm on one side of the fence, but standing really near it so that I can jump back over if I have to. The more interesting part was all that shady shit with the prop assistant and that dude who was weird as fuck. Yeah, that would be Sarah and Dave. I think Dave is getting charged. Sarah, I am on the fence with her. Alec, 65%. And I don't think Hannah is going to be charged. And then Pickle's going to get charged. Those are my predictions. If it ever changes, I'll let you know, and I'll let you know why. So we got two more quick things to run through here today. One of them is funny, and the other, I could not believe it when I heard about this. Yeah, lady, I agree. Baldwin's defense will be, where did the live round come from? And as a prosecutor, I would say, I don't think it really matters where it came from. You didn't check it. You had it in your hand. You said the gun was a problem. You knew there were safety concerns, even though you said there was. You didn't know because you knew the gun was unsafe. So you basically said the gun was old and unreliable and whatnot, but you still decided to use it. You said that you didn't think it should be loaded during the rehearsal, but you knew it was loaded and continued to do it anyway. And you, as according to the FBI, you had to have pulled that trigger when you pointed it at this young woman. That would be how I would respond as a prosecutor. We'll just have to wait and see. But there was an opinion piece that I quite liked from the New York Post. The New York Post is just a bee's dick over the line from being a tabloid. I love it. They've got that. I want to read this opinion and then take a look at this thing that I was literally speechless this afternoon when I saw that this had happened. Let's see. I gotta close this ad. And for the last time, until we close, do me a favor, hit that like button. We've got 287 likes, and there's 380 of you here now. So some have dropped off, new people have come in. So let's at least get us up to 300. Put us on the track for a 600 like stream tomorrow when we get back to Johnny Depp and Amber Heard and take a look at some of that. Good question from Cherry Admax. Thank you so much. Will you be discussing the suitcase lady case? No, because you probably all know more about that than me. There's a lot of other things going on, and we are only 13 days away, less than 2 weeks away from another Taylor Business update. I can't wait for that. Yeah, she's the dismembering SM drug addicted possible cannibal girlfriend trial coming up September 1st is a development in the case. That'll be fun to talk about. So, all right, let's look at this opinion piece from the New York Post. I just want to read it because it's funny. To me, it was funny. I just even like the headline. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. See, that was easy. We already jumped up over 300. Now let's see if we can get up to 400. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. You know you like it. You know you want to do it. You don't want to hit it. And then slap that bell in for the notification, and we'll be good. Oh, before we get going, we have a wonderful, generous super chat from Mexican Iron Man. Your coverage and analysis is great. Keep up the good work. And your super chat is great. Thank you so much. Keep keep the good vibes flowing. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, come back later and leave a comment, and we should be good. So, all right, the New York Post, they're not the most unbiased, and I don't think there's anyone who would disagree that they're quite sensational. But this is just such a funny Maureen Callahan just makes me laugh. This was great. Alec Baldwin has always insisted, despite evidence to the contrary, that he didn't pull the trigger. The FBI now says he did. That finding, released over the weekend, comes just after the Santa Fe Sheriff's Office announced it's only waiting for Baldwin's phone records before sending its investigation file to the DA's office. Are the walls closing in yet, Alec? And see, that's another good piece that that pushes me over to the 65% mark. Yeah, I saw the thing. Titanic's going to be way far down the line. I mean, that's something that's been done to death. I want to talk about things that maritime accidents that not a lot of people know about. So yeah, the fact that they want Alec Baldwin's phone records. If they didn't plan on charging him, if they didn't think he did anything wrong, they wouldn't need his phone records. So that says they're still very, very closely looking at him. They're not taking any action until they get those phone records. So that's one of the other reasons why I'm sort of in the 65%. We'll just have to see how it goes. Are the walls closing in yet, Alec? The FBI report. There we go. The FBI report is reason to cheer. Not since O.J. Simpson have we seen someone so guilty act so aggrieved, entitled, put upon, and victimized, as if this whole tragedy has affected no one more than Baldwin himself. Not Helena Hutchins' husband, nor her little boy, so traumatized after her death that he couldn't speak for days, but Alec freaking Baldwin. Think that's an overstatement? Let me count the ways. Gallivanting through the Hamptons in Vermont just days after the shooting, Baldwin shopping at Ralph Lauren and preening before the pops, the ones he otherwise hates and physically attacks. So they could get the perfect shot of Baldwin inside a gleaming restaurant holding his head in his hands. The bizarre roadside presser with his fake Spanish wife, the Rachel Dolezal of the Hamptons. In which he claimed the Rust set was run by a very, very well-oiled crew who just had the bad luck to suffer this 1 in a trillion tragedy. I'm Alec Baldwin. The barrage of social media posts in the days after, Hilaria and Alec gloating over their family, that is, when Hilaria wasn't getting in, her name, geez. Hilaria wasn't getting in on the victim act herself, writing that parenting through this has been an intense experience, to say the least. This isn't an article, it's an opinion piece. It's not coming across as news. It's labeled as an opinion piece, in all fairness. I just love the attitude. Know what else will be an intense experience? Criminal charges, jail time, and the loss of all his money in civil litigation. Except for that arbitration he's going through. On Monday, the New Mexico medical examiner ruled the shooting an accident. The district attorney has yet to decide whether to file charges. I'm Alec Baldwin. Dun, dun, dun. Did I mention that the Baldwins thought there was no better time to buy a sprawling historic Vermont farmhouse for $1.75 million? That's how delusional these two are, how surely they believe Alec to be above the law or any consequence. As two firearm experts in onset safety told me last year, guns don't fire themselves. Alec Baldwin, for all his caterwauling, that's a great word. We need to caterwaul more. For all his caterwauling and crocodile tears, pulled the trigger and killed Helena Hutchins. I'm not aware of any gun firing itself, veteran Hollywood firearms expert Steve Wolf told me last December after Alec's poor me softball sit-down with ABC's George Stephanopoulos, his good pal from the Hampton social scene, not that either disclosed that little conflict of interest. The trigger must have been pressed, Wolf said, as said anyone else who's ever picked up a gun. It's really important to discredit anyone who claims that guns fire themselves. If this becomes an acceptable defense, there goes any accountability when it comes to shooting people. We can't have this kind of guns shoot themselves things. They don't. Former FBI agent turned Hollywood firearms consultant Buddy Chacon told me the same thing. The bullet striking and killing that woman came out of the barrel of the gun pointed directly at her, Chacon said. Bullets don't curve. He isn't in the Matrix. The trigger would still have to be pulled. Alec to Stephanopoulos. I would never point a gun at anyone and pull the trigger at them. Never. Also, he was brazen enough to say he felt no guilt. This was the same interview in which Baldwin claimed Hutchins told him to point the gun at her. Everything is at her direction, he said. I'm holding the gun where she told me to hold it, which ended up right below her armpit. So, which is it, Alec? You never pointed a gun at anyone, or you pointed a gun at Hutchins because she told you to. And if it's the latter, what are we to infer? That Hutchins is to blame for you pulling the trigger and shooting her to death? It's all so vile, but take heart. As a producer on Rust, Baldwin must also share blame for the rookie mistakes and cost cutting that led up to the tragedy. Rookie mistakes, maybe not. Because we'll see in the other deal, a little bit of a preview here. He wasn't in charge of hiring crew, but he was in charge of budgetary things. So if you can link the cost cutting, you might have a good chance. Don't forget that on the morning Hutchins was killed, 7 crew members walked off the set over safety concerns. At least one had sounded the alarm to the unit production manager, at one point texting, "We've now had 3 accidental discharge. This is super unsafe." It's easy to see how such standard safety protocols went ignored and how dire warnings were shrugged off. As the old saying goes, the fish rots from the head. And Baldwin, as we've all seen over the past year, lives in a reality of his own making. His wife, née Hillary Thomas, from Boston, see, someone here said call her by her real name, it's Hillary. His wife, née Hillary Thomas, from Boston, is, through sheer force of make-believe and some bronzer, Spanish. Do our resident Latinas have anything to say about that? His wife, née Hillary Thomas from Boston, is, through sheer force of make-believe and bronzer, Spanish. His great friend Woody Allen is just misunderstood. And of course, it's totally proper to brag about your happy family life incessantly on Instagram while ignoring your part in destroying another young family. In Baldwin's demented worldview, anyone who thinks he's responsible for the death of a beautiful young wife and mother, her whole life and career ahead of her, must be motivated by animus or greed, even the widower. By the sheer force of magic and bronzer. I like that. What you have is a certain group of people, litigants and whatever, on whatever side, who their attitude is, well, the people who likely seem negligent have no money, and the people who have money are not negligent. Yeah, so he's saying, the people that are responsible don't have any money. I'm not responsible, but I have money, so people are coming after me. Loser. This was Baldwin in March, weeks after Hutchins' widower filed his civil suit against Baldwin, and went on the Today Show, calmly expressing his justifiable anger over Baldwin's interview with Stephanopoulos. As I said, when we talked about the lawsuits in the OSHA report, I told you that was some messed up shit that went on around surrounding the widower, Mr. Hutchins, filing the lawsuit against Alec Baldwin. There's some shitbaggery going there on behalf of Mr. Baldwin, and we'll talk about that when we review his arbitration against the production company. So this is what Hutchins was saying when he went on the Today Show to talk about his filing his lawsuit against Baldwin. Hearing him blame Helena in the interview and shift responsibility to others and seeing him cry about it, I just feel, are we really supposed to feel bad about you, Mr. Baldwin? Hutchins went on to state the obvious, which again continues to elude Baldwin. Baldwin, who prides himself on being smarter than the average Hollywood duck, was with his one-time NPR show and his best-selling memoir and his coverage in the New Yorker and telling the New York Times that he was qualified to be the governor of New York. Oh, and his liberal bona fides with his SNL spoofs of Donald Trump, a man he has more in common with than he could ever admit. There's the weapon right there. Lest there remain any doubt as to who Alec Baldwin really is, consider these text messages between Baldwin and Matt Hutchins, whom Baldwin was so quick to befriend in the hours after the shooting. Wednesday, December 1, 2021, after Hutchins reaches out to Baldwin. Alec Baldwin, I'm with my kids, ! Your attorney told me not to contact you, so what's up? What's up? That says it all. That's Baldwin saying, why are you bothering me? What could you possibly have to say? Can't we just do this through lawyers? What are you, sad or something? Alec Baldwin, make sure you tell your lawyer that you reached out to me and not vice versa. That's important. That's actually a smart thing Alec Baldwin told him to do. Because if somebody's lawyer says, don't talk to my client, you talk to the client, that's not so good. So he was smart to say that. Of course, you can always text me if you have something on your mind. Your lawyer sent a variant of a cease and desist to me, told me not to contact you, so there's that. How callous, how heartless, especially for someone who has spent the past 10 months begging for sympathy and understanding. Karma isn't a big concept to describe what Alec Baldwin has coming. Isn't a big enough concept to describe what Alec Baldwin has coming. Fortunately for decent people everywhere, sloppy emotional ploys and disgusting attempts to blame the victim do not apply to the criminal justice system, the FBI, or the laws of physics. So, there's that. I just like that. I thought that was fun. I just wanted to read that because it kind of made me laugh. My Beavers unit. Hey, welcome, Beav. Beav and Steph are on the warpath here. Good to see you. Good to see you here. I wish I was drunk. How are we? We are great. And I'm talking so much. I still haven't even finished my first glass of whiskey, and it's been an hour and 42 minutes. That's really good. Thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you for reminding me I need to be drinking. So, all right, that's it. Or so I thought. That's what I had planned. You said you've been here. When I asked if you were here, you didn't respond to me asking you. So I don't know. I've just noticed you now. You were too quiet. If you were here, you were too quiet. So, all right. That is right where I planned to end the show today. I had planned to end it there until this afternoon happened. This afternoon, I was alerted to a podcast that I did not know even existed. Disgraced Cuomo. Which disgraced Cuomo, you ask? The CNN Cuomo. I thought this was stupid. I didn't believe it when I got it. And I came with a link, and my literal thought was, okay. All right, just one quick thing here. Honky Kong asks, how can a medical examiner rule a shooting as an accident? I mean, they can. I mean, they can rule things happen if the death happened accidentally or whatnot. You find the guy that has a handprint on his throat. It's probably not an accident. You can do, if there's 18 stab wounds in the small of the back, he probably didn't commit suicide. You can make judgments like that. And you can also basically make determinations to a certain extent, but is it a point blank wound from a place that where you would be shot if you were being executed or killed? I mean, it's not it doesn't, as I said, it doesn't hold much legal weight in saying whether or not someone will or will not be charged. That's just the medical examiner's determination. It's not written in stone by the hand of God like one of the commandments. Tracy Fagan. Oh, thank you so much. Would you consider reviewing the Grand Camp Maritime accident? I do not know the Grand Camp Maritime accident, but yes, I would consider it. If you do me one favor, Tracy Fagan, send me an email to thelegalvices@gmail.com. Thelegalvices@gmail.com. Send me that exact text as a message. Then I'll have it there and I'll be able to add it to my list. I probably won't remember it and I'll never find this text again. So please, 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 if there's anything you want me to look at, particularly maritime accidents and things, you can do that. Either email thelegalvices@gmail.com or send me a message on Twitter at thelegalvices at Twitter. So thank you. I would be happy to look at it and see what it's all about and see if it would work for us. So I got this deal. Yes, I got your email. I haven't had time to respond yet, but I got it. And I referenced it earlier on today. So we've got it. I got this message that said, hey, this is what this was, and had a link. I didn't believe it. I was very, very hesitant to click on the link because it didn't go to any domain that I recognized. And I was skeptical, but so I went on another computer in the office and clicked on it just in case it was some sort of Trojan horse spam bot thing. But no, this was a legit, real thing from yesterday. This is Alec Baldwin giving an interview to Chris Cuomo on Chris Cuomo's podcast after the FBI report came out. Yeah, that's why I didn't believe it. Someone said, it said something like post FBI report, Alec Baldwin appears on Chris Cuomo podcast. And I went, okay. I don't think Chris Cuomo has a podcast. B, I don't think Alec Baldwin is that stupid to go on the podcast immediately after the FBI releases their report. But holy crap, it's real. It's real. This is Alec Baldwin being interviewed on Chris Cuomo's new podcast about this incident without a lawyer. Alec Baldwin, the hubris, just the unmitigated gall and stupidity of this man to do this is astounding to me. Let's see what he had to say. This was wild.
So inherently subjective. I have one question that if you don't feel that you can clear it up now, you should at some point in the future. But then I want to talk to you about just processing and coping and enduring through this situation.
Processing, coping, and enduring through this situation. Unlike the family of the chick you
fact question down. Is, in an earlier interview, you said, I didn't pull the trigger. Right. And there's all this stage direction about the hammer, which is obviously a part of a revolver that people can look up for themselves, but that you pulled it back as the scene was directed for you to do. You say you never pulled the trigger, but the gun went off. Right. You do the ABC interview, and it was kind of left there. That will not make sense to people. If a bullet comes out of a gun, they say, well, then someone fired.
You're familiar, but this did not come from me.
Yeah, and see, now he's just going to say stupid shit. So cue stupid shit from Alec Baldwin. Wait, let me get stuff out of the way. So I've almost twice nuked this interview. Here we go. All right. He's saying how, and just remember, this is post FBI report saying the only way that bullet would, the primer on that would have been ignited would be to pull the hammer back to full cock and pull the trigger. This is after the FBI has said it would not discharge unless the trigger was pulled. And the only way it did was after the insides had fallen apart from testing.
A bullet comes out of a gun, they say, well, then someone fired.
You're
it. It was
familiar,
in your
but
hand.
this did not come from me. This came from the DA's office themselves. You're familiar with what fanning a gun is. Have you heard of that phrase, fanning a gun?
Yes, but explain
So
it.
if you pull the hammer back and you don't lock the hammer, if you pull the hammer back pretty far, in old Western movies, you'd see someone fan the hammer of the gun. The hammer didn't lock. You pulled it back to an extent where it would fire the bullet without you pulling the trigger, without you locking the hammer. The man who's the principal safety officer on the set of the film declared that the gun was safe when he handed it to me. The person who was the principal safety officer of the film declared in front of the entire assemblage, this is a cold gun.
He's not helping himself. Skullcram said Alex is counting on people's gun ignorance, and that's what I was going to say. Let me embiggen this thing here. God damn it! Fanning is a thing. When you fan the hammer back, you just kind of flick the hammer. It cocks back a certain degree and then comes down. Does Alec have any idea how much you have to modify a gun, especially an ancient old Colt 45, to get it to do that? All of those things, like, the quick draw guys that do that fanning and shoot a bajillion fucking rounds per second, they have ridiculously modified handguns. Not every gun can do that. Those hammers have a shit ton of resistance, especially those old style guns. And someone correct me if I'm wrong, but that old style gun, I mean, now you pull the hammer back on a revolver, and it's not as difficult as it is on the old ones, because with the old ones, when you're pulling back the hammer, you're also engaging the trigger. And so you're pulling a lot of weight. That has a lot of resistance and a lot of tension. And you can't just flick the hammer with a finger and make it do that. It just doesn't work. People saying, look at his mic shaking. Yeah, you'd think he can afford a little bit of a better setup than that. Exactly. Yeah. Anywho. Let's get back to this stupidity that comes out of his mouth.
Now, why did he say that? If he didn't know, if he hadn't checked. The point is, all of us were told that everything was cool and you can relax and we're working with a gun that's safe to rehearse with. But he explained it to me effectively.
Did he say it's a cold gun, or did he say, hey, it's cool, everything's under control, you can sit back and relax? Say what he said. Don't say what you wished he would have said. Fuck you, Alec Baldwin.
That's exactly what can happen if you pull a hammer back and let it go. If there's a live round. See, there's only one question to ask here. Who put a live round in the gun?
Oh, my Lord. All right, we'll make this big again. That's the only question you have to ask, who put the live round in it? No. Who pointed the gun at the lady? Who pulled the trigger because the FBI said that's what happened? Who was fucking around with it, doing this quick draw stuff, or doing this cross draw stuff? Who was it that said they didn't need training on how to do it? Who? Why? Why would you do this? And this is Amber Heard level, nothing wrong. You've gone past the point where you can say, oh, I'm sorry, I fucked up. What can I do to make this right? It's not, he did nothing wrong, nothing. They just handed him a gun and said, it's cool, man. No. As I just saw it flash by, which is a thing. If Jesus tells you that gun is clear, here we go. 3. I don't care if Jesus says the gun is clear. If it's a real gun in your hand, you check it. I own a revolver like that. What he is saying just doesn't happen. That's exactly it. If Jesus tells you it's unloaded or is loaded with blanks, you check it. That's your gun. It's in your hands. You're the one that's fucking around with it. Baldwin.
That's it. There is no other question to ask.
Do you have any suspicion?
God, I hope he is prosecuted, because the prosecutor's going to go, I think there's a few more questions to ask, Mr. Dumb Shit.
There is no other question to ask.
God.
Do you have any suspicion that this could have been a setup?
No. I think that in the beginning, for me, there was a discussion about what was likely. Everybody focused on what's likely. Someone was responsible for a horrible accident. And then as time went on, I began to entertain, because of the insistence of the people involved. And I don't want to get into this detail now, but of the insistence of certain people that something else was afoot here, I was open-minded to that for a couple of months and was willing to explore those possibilities for a couple of months. And then after exhausting that possibility, private investigators, things that were information we access, we come back to what is likely. What is likely is that somebody who was responsible for one situation or one line of responsibility, and the other person, it's like a tandem of the two people, one of them or both was negligent.
But you believe, for your own head, in processing how this became your life, you don't think anybody was trying to put you in a situation where something terrible was going to happen?
That requires so much. I mean, I am somebody who is perfectly comfortable with conspiracy theories that people want to get rid of. You're talking to the guy who, when I had a show on MSNBC, I did a 2-hour, 4-part memorial that was going to air literally. And it aired literally. It was scheduled to air on Friday, November 22nd, 2013, the 50th anniversary of Kennedy's murder. And I had a feeble and very old, but nonetheless lucid Mark Lane on the show. I had Jim Douglas, who wrote JFK and the Unspeakable. I had the guy whose last name is with an S, it's on the tip of my tongue, who wrote the New York Times bestseller he was a New York Times reporter about the Warren Commission. And I had Bobby Kennedy Jr. come on, and he was the first member of the Kennedy family to say on the air that his family believed the Zapruder film was doctored. I had a 2-hour, 4-part program all about the conspiracy aspects of JFK's assassination, and NBC killed it. My producer at MSNBC told me that the mothership across the street, NBC News, does not tolerate, they completely support that Oswald is the killer, and they refuse to disseminate any information that questions that theory. Oswald was the lone killer, and they don't want to hear one, and they canceled my show.
Objection,
and in its place,
relevance.
Put some kind of Tom Brokaw, bowl of oatmeal with the boots in the reverse, in the stirrups, and JFK Jr. saluting, and just a very sappy commemorative program.
But it led you to believe that
he has no sympathy for dead people, does he? Calling the video of the funeral procession, JFK's funeral procession, sappy and what? Guy just has no fucking sympathy or concern for any dead person, apparently. And what the fuck that had to do with the question, I don't know.
that there could be an alternative explanation.
Oh, when I was a kid, back in a time when journalism was probably still controlled by certain powers and influenced by certain powers.
Say Jews. Say Jews. You want to say Jews. You know you want to say Jews, don't you? Don't you, Alec? You fucking weirdo. When the media was controlled by certain powers, he wants to drop a J bomb on this report. Yeah. I could not believe this was happening watching this. This this is stunning. And if his lawyer hasn't punched him in the head because of this, his lawyer is not doing a job.
There could be an alternative explanation.
Oh, when I was a kid, back at a time when journalism was probably still controlled by certain powers and influenced by certain powers, but nowhere near what it is now. I went to a 7-Eleven as a boy, and on a spinning rack of magazines was a journal about JFK's assassination. It could have been based on Robert Sam Anson's book, They've Killed the President. And in it, they had Oswald's autopsy photos. I mean,
what the fuck is he talking about? This is the second time he's been asked, do you think it's possible someone is trying to set you up? And this is the second time he's gone off on this JFK assassination conspiracy. What is wrong?
It was at a 7-Eleven.
Yeah. No, it
in
was
Massapequa, Long Island in 1960 something, when I was like 10 years old. And, I think sometimes, not always, you look at something and you say, it looks that way because it is that way. And it's just very common sense. And to me, Kennedy's assassination is a very common sense thing. There's no way Oswald squeezed off 3 shots and had 2 hits from that window. It's out of the question.
Oh, it's called Marine Corps training, buddy.
So back to you.
Anyway,
back to you for a second, and we'll go on. When you did the interview with ABC, we have a lot of friends in common and family. I was not in favor of you doing it because I thought it was too soon and you were going to get beat up for it. That happened to a certain extent. But I think the bigger concern, and what I want to know for this audience is, weren't your lawyers saying to you, even if this is ruled an accident and everybody who's in power acknowledges that Alec Baldwin had no criminal responsibility for this tragic
civil
death, but you are a producer on the film, and something can be an accident that is held as a liability of the producers, and you
it
are
depends
one.
on what grade of producer you are. There are managerial producers who raise the money and spend the money and hire people, and there are creative producers who come in and the only authorities they have are over script casting. That's the category.
But you're getting sued just the same.
Well, the production's getting sued, and I'm one of the 5 producers that is named in the lawsuit. So, and we're all indemnified by an insurance policy.
That's the lawsuit I was just talking about that we're going to look into next time. But God, and I think Cuomo needs to spend just a little more time in the tanning booth. What do you guys think?
One of the 5 producers that is named in the lawsuit. So, and we're all indemnified by an insurance policy. There's a lot I can say about that in terms of who did what to try to craft settlements and things. There's a very complex web of stuff that was going on in the months after that. My impulse was, if you want to say something about me that's true, I'm not going to stop someone from doing that. You know what I mean? I'm not going to complain about that. If I earned it, like this guy that said I punched him over a parking space in front of my building, and there's 6 cameras in front of my building, and all of them refuted everything he said. So when we made that go away, because he lied, the guy lied, and we had it on film that he lied. But again, like people much more than I was prepared to accept, people want money. They want money.
Well, and they want to go after you.
Do you think that the husband of this murdered woman and the son of this murder, you think they don't want money? You think that's the thing. People say things like this are a money grab. There is only one way we have in law to compensate a family or someone who has lost a loved one through an act like this. It's money. The judge can't say, okay, bring them back to life. The judge cannot make you whole. That is literally the only recovery that is available to you, is to do calculations and reduce your loved one's life to a bunch of numbers and a dollar sign. So yeah, there is no other recovery they can seek, Alec Baldwin.
We had it on film that he lied.
And what does has to do with anything?
Again, like people much more than I was prepared to accept, people want money. They want money.
Well, and they want to go after you, especially the New York Post. But just to button this up, and then I want to move on. The idea is that you believe that as a producer, you're not going to have any liability because you're a different type of producer than other producers who are on the
I
film?
believe, no, that's a fact. I mean, there are people who are managerial producers. They're responsible for who gets hired, who doesn't get hired. You know, I mean, for example, the person who was the principal, what they call the armorer mentor, this guy, Seth Kenny, he completely endorsed her being hired as the armorer. You know, no one came to the production, even though this doesn't pertain to me and my responsibilities. Nobody came to the production and said, don't hire her. She was hired. She's in a union. There was no complaint. No one came to the producers and said, the producers are blameless.
She's not in a union, though. He's wrong about that. See, don't talk about shit like this on camera. She was not union. I believe she said she'd taken like one union course. Hannah Gutierrez Reed was not in the union. Idiot, idiot, idiot. Seriously, I hope his lawyer has punched him in the skull.
For that. I will say, even though I have my issues with them, the producers are not people who were warned not to hire her.
Do you think that the
didn't.
producers had reason to know that there were screwed up things happening on that set, that there could be danger?
That's a much more involved question that I don't want to get into now, again, because it speaks to some of the issues I'm going to address later on. But the bottom line is that there are people I spoke to who I admire and respect. And I said to them, did you think that this was an unsafe set? And they said, no. And I had no experience myself when I was there that it was an unsafe set ever.
You just told him the gun. You said in your statement that the gun was old and not in good condition.
Until that moment, until that day that happened, when someone handed me a prop weapon and told me this is safe to use, they made that declaration. Now, what in the world of alternatives, what might have happened if he never said anything? But that's not the case. More in line with the way we live our lives right now. No one's following them around with a camera all day, are they?
Right.
No one's following the armorer or the
victim.
first AD around with a camera all day long saying, well, what happened? What happened? What happened?
Well, arguably, the reason this has taken so long to reach a legal conclusion on the responsibility side, liability, civil litigation is something else. It's often more protracted. I think if it's not Alec Baldwin involved, we get answers sooner.
Well, all of that remains to be seen. There's nothing. I mean, the fact that this has taken so long has been quite troublesome to me. And
it's been quite troublesome because you have not turned over your cell phone records for several months after being ordered to do so by the court. That's why it's taking so many months. There's only one reason the DA has not made a decision yet, and that's because you have not complied with the order to turn over your cell phone data. Nice try, bitch.
And we're going to address that as well. Once I mean, listen, if you make an announcement, this was made clear to me by my lawyer, if you make an announcement that you want them to step on the gas and hurry things up, that's only going to slow them down. DAs and prosecutors don't want to be told by people who are potentially the subject of their investigation what to do.
Of course not.
I mean, my lawyer said to me, if you prod them, if you push them, if you go public and say, what the fuck is the problem here, then that's not going to help you at all. Nope. So I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. And then the announcement is going to come about who is or isn't going to be charged. I mean, I have a lot of opinions about that. But let me just say this, which is that we come down to a point where it's just like, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what you do. Now, this is something which was something that was to the delight of people who hate my guts politically. Trump went on TV and said he thinks I did it on purpose. I wouldn't rule it out, he said, if he did it on. His son made T-shirts that they sold on a website.
You called that surreal. How is it surreal? It's absolutely our reality. I can't believe you were surprised that he didn't take the opportunity.
I've been cured of that observation. You know, this was this wonderful opportunity for these people to, like in my case, you're not going to find any child pornography on my computer.
What?
The things that they're hunting for, that they want. They're desperate for, you know, in the United States, obviously sexual scandal overwhelms everything. They love that here. They love to condemn people for that.
What does this have to do with child?
But what I realize is that, as I've said in the past, if George Bush's mother, if Barbara Bush felt,
what the fuck is he talking about? We go from Trump to child, to George Bush's mother. Dude.
through the ice on a pond, and I waited. If Barbara Bush fell through the ice on a pond, and I waded out into the pond and saved her life, they'd say I groped her sexually.
Dude,
when I was pulling her out of the ice. I groped her. I squeezed her breasts while I was pulling her.
What the fuck is going on here? What? Seriously, what the fuck is going on here? Mayday, mayday. We're crashing and burning. Holy shit. This is just like last night with D. Snyder saying that, telling Al Gore's wife that the only person that's that's making anything about rape and bondage is Tipper Gore. That's all in her mind. Alec Baldwin. You went from child to groping Barbara Bush's tits and pulling her out of the ice. Good God, Alec. Pull the ripcord, bail. Oh, Jesus.
Out of the ice pond.
First of all, thank you for that image. Second, would that be before or after you pushed her through the ice in the pond?
Well, then you're more wise than I'll ever be.
God.
But my point is, it doesn't matter what you do. The ones that are out to get you are out to get you, and in this case, not even so much that kind of trash press. I mean, anything Murdoch and anything Post. I mean, who? I used to think that the Post was something that cops and firemen and doormen read for the sports page, because let's face it, the Post has a pretty good sports page, and all the rest of that vomit that constitutes the Post. I thought, who reads this? But I was surprised to learn some of.
I read it, and I guess you didn't like the opinion piece. I take it, Alex.
The people over the years who read the Post,
especially now that it's all digital. But look, all of this aside, and I do want to talk about it a little bit more in terms of how quickly you returned to your public life in terms of taking on tough issues and making yourself a target. But, you know, when I reached out at the time, I felt so horribly about what you and the family, and obviously, the filmmaker who lost her life, that processing, that pain, I felt so badly for you and for everybody involved. How hard has this been for you and Ilaria and the older kids?
What you hit on is the most important thing, and I'm not just saying this to be polite or what have you, or to dress this up a certain way. It is everyone that was there that day walked around confused. Confusion was what reigned that day, because what happened and what actually we learned happened was just not even in the realm of possibility.
It just wasn't in the realm of possibility that if you point a gun at someone and pull the trigger, they might die. Not even in the realm of fucking possibility. Janice Diver, thank you so much for the super chat. I got a little bit later getting to these than I thought I would, but thank you for the music censoring stream with John Denver, Zappa, and Twisted Sister. Just got a chance to watch it. My pleasure. That's a good one. I like that one. That was one of my favorite streams so far. Paul Farrell, to fan the hammer of a single action revolution, the trigger must be pulled and held so the hammer never locks into the cocked position, which then lets the gun be fired by the fanning the hammer. Alec, do you see a problem with your statement that you would never pull the trigger and it just went off from fanning? Do you see any problems, Alec? Yeah.
It wasn't even possible. We thought somebody fainted. We thought whatever. So to focus on one thing, which is the real tragedy. I'm not the victim here. No matter how much people say, oh, the Post and this, that, I'm not the victim here. Things for me are going to get better. Things for me are going to get cleared up. I'm 1,000% confident about that. And nothing's going to bring this woman back. She died. She has a little boy, I have a whole raft of comments about that later on, but the idea being that this is the real tragedy. And when you turn around, to me, the only significant thing, everything we've said doesn't matter. Me, my positioning, the press, my wanting to reach out to an audience and say, I hope you understand how this works. That, I mean, that there were safety protocols. Why would anybody believe that I worked in this business for 40 years and that day I decided to play with a gun? That's
because you fucking did, you piece of shit. That's why.
Dumbest thing I've ever heard. All behavior is consistent. People, I've worked in this business for years, and with cars, stunts, weaponry, whatever, I've never had one incident. If there was a title of a chapter of a book, it would be called Without Incident. I never had one problem in all of my years of making movies, and especially when I was younger, running down the tarmac with a gun in my hand or in a car. Now, my point is that the real tragedy here is what happened to this woman. And even though this is 1 in a billion, they had 2 laws in front of the California Assembly that were both voted down. And the one law, I spoke to the state assemblyman who said the MPAA was responsible for this because they don't want to take guns out of movies.
I can't believe that, by the way. I was shocked to learn that you guys are still using real weapons with blanks. But I don't want you to, I get it. You don't consider yourself a victim in this. I totally get that. And yes, some have suggested that you are trying to put yourself that way. I don't believe that. And I know that that's the truth. But, you know, you said in the interview, George asked you, Stephanopoulos, this has to be the worst thing that ever happened to you. And you said, yes.
And you know what? It was the worst thing that happened to Helena Hutchins as well.
But how do you handle that?
I handle it because I have a very supporting spouse.
You know, I'm going to cut this off here. We're going to call it a night because I don't give a single fuck about how he copes with this shit. I don't give a flying fuck. He has a supportive spouse that helps him through this traumatic time in his life. He's a piece of shit. He killed a woman. I've said there's only in my head right now a 65% chance he's getting charged. I think it should be 100%, and I think he should never, ever, ever work again and just bury his dumb ass under the prison as far as I'm concerned. Whether that happens or not, time will tell, but I don't want to listen to him talk about how he copes with this tragic event. Fuck him. He can just fuck right off. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But wow. Yeah. I didn't want to click on the link that I got because I thought it might be some sort of Trojan horse virus. And then once I finally got up the courage to open it up on another computer, and then I started watching it. Holy crap. That was not what I was expecting. Yeah. JFK conspiracies. Oh, poor boohoo, JFK and his little son saluting him. Oh, boohoo, the sappy stuff, to child videos, to groping Barbara Bush and grabbing her tits. Yikes. There is no way in hell that his lawyer knew about that beforehand, or if he did, condoned that. Or if he did, he gave him talking points. Alec went off the reservation, and his lawyer was watching this going, holy fuck. Yeah, this is dumb. This is wild. So, good grief. Yeah, we're just going to cut it off there, and we're going to wrap this up. So while you're all sitting here, while I've got a captive audience, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You are captive. You are my audience. So go ahead and do that. We've got 376 likes. That's pretty good. We can easily get over 400 if just a few of you reach down there and do that. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. And if you have subscribed, double check to make sure you're subscribed. And here's a few reasons why you should stay subscribed. Coming up tomorrow, we're going to be looking at a few more Alec Baldwin. me. A few more Johnny Depp, Amber Heard documents and some little tidbits there, catching up on some news, talk about her apparent career as an escort or madam. I will be looking at some of the documents. And then Friday, fair and balanced tonight, Friday night, Korea time, Friday morning, US time. We will be doing our weekly conspiracy, unexplained UFO, Bigfoot, ghost streams. We need to come up with that. I call it the unexplained. So we'll just say fair and balanced. We'll be on my channel. We'll be doing our unexplained podcast, or if you want to call it that, on Friday night. Then Saturday morning Korea time, Friday night US time. Myself and Legal Mindset will be on Fair and Balanced channel to do a Datamax stream where we're going to be answering some of the questions that got Uncivil Law Kurt in his little bit of drama he was involved in a while ago. So we're going to be doing the Datamax questions. We're going to be talking about being single in this day, being a single male in these days and age, and a single female in this day and age. So we're going to be having fun there. And then early Saturday afternoon, when I get done here, I am jumping on a train and heading north to hang out with Legal Mindset Andrew on Saturday night. Probably just going to get really, really, really drunk and come back on Sunday. Monday, there will be no Maritime Monday stream next week. We will be on Monday having my very first stream with Drex. That's going to be an experience for those of you that haven't experienced Drex. If you've experienced Drex and you don't like what he has to say, take a breath, take a rest, do something else on Monday night and come back on Tuesday. If you like Drex, you're really going to love this. We're going to go in deep and hard on a lot of issues. And if you don't know who Drex is, come and stick your toe in the water. If you like it, stick around. If you don't, take a break for the day. He's not for everybody, but we're going to be talking about manosphere issues, red pilling it, the based life, the unbreaded life. We're going to be calling it like it is. So get ready for that. Drex is an experience. And then Tuesday, we'll get back to our regular scheduled programs. But so that's what's going to be happening for the next few days. Great to have you all here. Mods, couldn't do this without you. Regulars, I love you guys all. Noobs that are just coming and joining us for the first time. If you like it, please come back, subscribe, do me that honor, do me that favor. Hit the like button on your way out and come back later and just drop a comment that lets that up the engagement part of the algorithm. So those are the basic YouTube things that everybody asks you to do: like, subscribe, notify, and leave a comment. Do that, and we'll get this channel to continue growing. And until tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel. Y'all have a great day. Thank you for all the generous super chats. Y'all have a great morning and afternoon and evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Mods, give them some kudos. I'll see you again tomorrow. And don't forget to enjoy your legal vices. I'm out.